It's time to turn your life-challenging moments into life-changing messages. Welcome to the Power Lift Stories podcast, where we are interviewing women whose stories will leave you lifted up, fired up, and fueled up with hope, courage, and inspiration. We want to thank our sponsor, Powerful Journey, who helps women tell their stories, write their books, and building a profitable brand around both. Join the masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com. That is PHYLLISJENKINS.com. Now here's your host, Phyllis Jenkins.
I just had a wonderful, fun interview with our guest today. And I want to start by asking you the question, are you looking for answers to life's most pressing marriage or relationship questions? If so, stay tuned because I have the author of this book here with us today, and you are going to love this fun interview. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. And if this is your first time, we welcome you to the Power Lift Stories podcast. I'm your host, Phyllis Jenkins, and you are in for a treat today. I am so excited to introduce you to our guest today, my friend Jeanne. And Jeanne is the author of this amazing book. It is Your Treasured Marriage, a God-centered guidebook to create long-lasting love. And it is a #1 Amazon bestseller. I've started reading the book, and let me tell you, it is a very easy read and one where you just want to continue to see what happens next and then walk away with golden nuggets. So Jeanne Gormick, so happy to have you today. And I am going to introduce you, and whatever I leave off, Jeanne, just jump in and tell more about yourself. So the bio that I have is Jeanne is a keynote speaker. And as you just saw, the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Your Treasured Marriage. With a bachelor's degree in psychology, Jeanne has spent many years as a senior retirement counselor, director of marketing within the senior industry, and is an active member of the Mothers of Preschools, which is MOPS, which is a speakers network. And Jeanne, you and I have something in common. When our girls were younger, I was a part of MOPS as well, a great organization. One of her greatest achievements is her 50-year marriage to her beloved late husband, Cal Gormick. And today, Jeanne inspires, encourages, and engages those in all sorts of relationships. So if you're not married and you're listening to this, continue to listen because you're still going to walk away with some great advice and actionable tips today. Jeanne creates long-lasting, successful business associations, friendships, and marriages. Jeanne, welcome, welcome, welcome.
My goodness. Thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Well, you are welcome. And Jeanne doesn't know this, but she's the hat lady. You guys see all those hats behind you. So I know a thing or two about hats, and I decided, Jeanne, that I am going to put on mine my Texas interview hat today.
I love that. Yeah. Let's see.
So we are both wearing our hats today. And in honor of you, I am going to keep this on for the rest of the interview.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so let's have some fun, Jeannie. I shared with Jeannie before we started that we are just going to talk as if we are sitting across from each other, although she's in California and I'm in Texas, but as though we're sitting across from each other, just having a great chat. So, Jeannie, I want to kick this off by asking you if you were to give your story a title, your life-challenging story, your life-changing story, if you were to give it a title, what would that title be and why?
Well, actually, the original title, all the years that I've been working on this book, was Opposites Attracting. We decided to go in a different direction so that other people would understand what the book was about. But honestly, it was originally Opposites Attracting because my husband and I were so different. We met in high school and it was more than male and female differences. It was dynamic differences, which sometimes cause some issues in the relationship, but nothing's perfect and we worked through that. But it was actually my late husband who suggested that I write a book about us. And that was when we had only been married for 10 years. And before he died, we were about to celebrate the 50th anniversary. So this is a 40-year project.
I love that. I love that. So your title would be for your story is Opposite Attracts. And I think a lot of us can concur with that, because even with my husband and I, who are college sweethearts, and we've been married for 44 years, there are some things that we are totally the opposite on, but we find that it completes us, those opposites. So if you would just share your story, and then we'll move on to have you share how God has shown himself mighty in your story as well.
Yeah. Well, obviously my life challenging part of the story was when I lost my husband. I was blessed, and I don't know, some of your listeners may be in a different situation, but the Lord truly blessed me because I was the breadwinner at the time. So I didn't have the financial issues that oftentimes widows have, and especially widows my age, because if they've never worked, that can be a difficulty. But the Lord blessed me through that. The Lord also blessed me in the career I was in at the time. I was in hospice. I was the volunteer coordinator for a hospice company. But what that did was that surrounded me with compassionate coworkers who understood loss. And that was so valuable because they would not let me get by with, how are you doing today? And I would respond, I'm okay. No. How are you really doing? And then they draw it out of me, and I would explain, well, for instance, last night was a tough night. And that's extremely therapeutic, and you do not get that typically in the workplace. So that was definitely a big thing that the Lord surrounded me and had me in just the right situation. And then family, of course.
Of course. And I love your answer and how they would draw the truth out of you, because you're right. People ask us, how are we doing? And many times, one or two things, we don't know if they really want to know how we're doing, or we don't feel that we need to go into how we're really doing. But I love the fact that your coworkers would say, no, 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 no. How are you really doing? And I think that sometimes we need to slow down and stop and really pay attention to that person that we're asking, how are you doing today? And not just take fine, good for an answer. Body language has a lot to do with it as well, and I'm sure that you would agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Jeannie, I know that I've talked about your book, Your Treasured Marriage, but you have 3 books. What made you want to write a book on marriage?
Yeah, and they're sitting behind me, but and the lighting. Anyway,
Here, no, show them. Come back. Show them one at a time so that they can see.
One at a time.
Give the titles. Yes.
Okay, this is Quit Your Job. You really can afford stay-at-home parenthood. That's to encourage moms and dads with 2 incomes to look and see if one of them could either work from home, which there's a lot of change already because of COVID-19, or give up a job and raise the children. And it can be the mom or the dad. So just because grandparents, as I am one, we don't necessarily have the values that our kids want us to be raising their kids. Just a thought.
That's good.
This one is, let me see if I can get that. Well, it's See Dick and Jane Start a Home-Based Business. This is a very, very simple, almost an outline, but since I was home-based for many, many years, I'm still home-based now. I'm back in my home office. That is a book that can get people started, and specifically if they are looking to make that change of the double incomes, it can help them be a successful home-based business. And this one was the original book. I think we published that in 2012, we being my late husband and myself, because we had a fundraising business. And so those are the 3 books, but I'm really focusing on Your Treasured Marriage and the other 2 books that I published during COVID. So.
Love that. And there's a connection in so many of your messages, which again, absolutely love what you're doing, Jeannie. Tell me, what things do you think make a marriage better?
Well, let me answer that with what I did in our marriage. And I might have overanalyzed the whole thing. I don't suggest this for all couples, but because we were so dynamically different and opposite, I decided to just start looking at the different components of our 2 individual people. I looked at our family histories. Mine, as I explain in the book, mine was, my dad was an executive with General Motors. So I wasn't wealthy, but I was well cared for in my family financially. You have to read my book to look and see some of the other dynamics that weren't so healthy. But then my husband, and I was raised in an Episcopalian household. And I specifically say that denomination because that was part of my story too. My husband was raised Jewish, and we were both raised outside of New York City. And what I was really looking for at the time, the Episcopal Church, and no offense to anyone who happens to be Episcopalian, it just wasn't right for me. And I had girlfriends who were Jewish, and I was looking into Judaism as my faith based. I was going to, if there's anything to do with Jesus Christ, I was going to go back to where he was. And he was a Jewish boy who had a bar mitzvah. And I just took it from there. But then I looked at the youngest child, my late husband, or his name was Cal. I saw Cal, the youngest child, and I was the oldest child. There are dynamics in that personality, or that affects your personality. One of the things, and I think I say it in the book, I wish that I was, okay, I want to say this right. As the oldest child, I wish my husband was the oldest child and I was the youngest. It would have made submission, which I retitled because of one of my pastors. It's not submission, it's yielding. But that's just one of the secrets. But anyway, so I looked at that. I explored especially his education and his struggles. I'm in my 70s. So back then in school, they didn't identify learning disabilities. We self-diagnosed him as ADD. And we worked through that. But then his career was affected by the fact that he wasn't secure as anything that he had to learn. And that clearly affected our marriage. And once I realized how the education and the career affected him and what his goals were, that was an important thing for me to look at. And our personality temperaments. Again, I'm caloric. Well, I won't get into that because unless you've read the books, but very strong and decision maker, but also fun-loving, where he was more fun-loving and not as serious. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is an important factor that we're going through. You're just laughing it off, you know. And honestly, in a marriage, we balanced each other because we were so opposite. But at the same time, you're frustrating me, you're driving me crazy. And I'm sure I did the same thing to him, just to be fair.
And you know, I love that you're pointing that out because my husband loves to have fun, joke around, and I'm the serious one. And so I'm like, can we get serious for a moment here? And so I can relate to you. But as I was reading through your book, and this was in the chapter titled Going in Different Directions, Cal's last few months. I love that even during the time that he was sick, and then you began to battle cancer, that he still would text you and give you words of encouragement.
Absolutely.
I love how we do become each other's cheerleaders and we are encouraging each other on. And again, even during his time of being ill, he saw you battling and wanted to be there for you.
Yes.
Love that. Just a great chapter there. And what else would you say, Jeannie, to someone who is in a relationship and they're not married yet?
Yeah.
And they say, oh my goodness, we are totally opposites. What would you say to them?
Well, I would certainly encourage them in that relationship. But I think, and I want to say this correctly, it's really advice to seriously dating or engaged couples, especially the gal, because so often it's all about the wedding and all about, you know, and this big one-day event, just a couple of hours. You got a whole marriage that you have to really get advice on. And I actually, this is just coming to my mind right now. I had joined a singles group when I felt comfortable that, well, maybe dating, maybe, you know, and I was exploring. Well, I actually was able to go to a Christian camp out. I love camping. I set up my tent. I set up my area. But one of the speakers that they had, it was males and females, of course. And one of the speakers recommended that those who had been divorced, in particular, those who had been hurt in relationships, to find couples and individuals who'd been married for at least 30 years.
Wow.
And I thought that was such good advice. And I do need to follow up with this group because I would love to speak at one of their retreats or something to encourage those. I've never been divorced. I have a concept of what it is and the pain and the loss. But at the same time, I can encourage people to not give up. And
Yes.
what was your original question, Phyllis?
Well, it's good. You've answered it. I was asking about those who were not married, but let's just jump for a moment. What if there is a woman who is listening who is freshly widowed? What words of encouragement can you give to her, Jeannie?
Yeah, I think the first place is to try to get support. Obviously, if the first place is usually family, and to be very aware that, let's say you have children, grandchildren, they're hurting too. And I found myself, my apology to my daughter, because she had lost her dad, but she was also my support. So, and I don't ask for a lot. I'm one of those individuals that just does what I need to do. But I know that I wasn't as compassionate toward her, I think, as I maybe should have been. However, that said, I would go to family. They can be very supportive, very close friends. Everybody wants to do something to help. And if you are an independent person, let them help.
That's good advice.
Yeah, they truly want to help you make a difference. And then at work, and I also run every 2 weeks, I have a support group for women who were married for just a very short time, engaged or in a serious dating relationship with a man romantically who is no longer with them and has died. So that's kind of a unique thing, because the other thing that I recommend is find a widows group.
Yes.
And I did that, and I was able to connect until I was strong enough again to do it on my own. So it's family, it's support groups, and understand, because when I researched online, the Modern Widows Club, they may even be international, but they're all over the country with monthly meetings. Just a suggestion there. But what was interesting was, because and if anybody's older than me on the call, I apologize, but I was praying that it would not be women my age. I was looking for my age and younger, just because I relate to them better. And I was in the senior industry. So I wanted something different. And hopefully I haven't offended anybody. But I went to my first meeting, and it was in person because it was before COVID. And great women, great discussion. And so highly recommend Modern Widows Club. And then if they're not widows, I encourage them to test it out anyway, because you've had a loss of a romantic partner. And that's really what it is. Marriage is different. But going back to my group, I started that group because the loss is different. I had 50 years with my late husband with Cal, and we had kids and we had grandkids together. We actually have all my grandchildren are very special, but I do have an interesting situation with my daughter. She is now pregnant. And so,
congratulations.
yeah, my late husband is not here to share that. But my point was that as a married couple for a long time, it was a little easier for me to let him go because he'd had a full life. We had had a full life. But when you're just engaged and you lose your fiance, all of those hopes and dreams and everything that you had in front of you, it's a different grieving. But I do recommend even a widows group just to get them started.
Yeah, I have found that community is very, very important, that support with others. Well, Jeannie, as we begin to bring our interview to a close, I just want to set the stage.
Sure.
You are standing on stage with your beautiful hat on, and you are speaking to a women's group, a group of women. And as far as you can see, there are nothing but women in the audience, a large number of women. And you have spoken, you've shared your story, and you've seen them nodding, yes. You've seen them wiping tears because they can relate. You've seen them leaning in as you've spoken and shared your story, your truth. But now it's come to a close. They stood, they gave you a standing ovation. But now the women have turned to leave, to go back to their vehicles. And you, Jeanne Gormick, are standing, and the curtains close. You turn to go to your vehicle as well. What are 3 lessons that you hope every woman walked away with?
Well, I think the most important one, and this is for all relationships, whether they're business, friendships, all relationships take work. Marriage takes work. And you have heard this, I'm sure. Everybody in your audience has heard this. It is not always easy. Just that's number 1. Number 2, true love is commitment.
Yes.
And it's commitment above all. As I've alluded to, and what's in the book, we had struggles as a married couple of all kinds. And it was because we were basically committed to one another that made the difference. And my most important secret for how to have a long-lasting, treasured marriage, again, all relationships, same thing, is forgiveness.
Yes.
Communication is such a close second to that, and it's very important as well. But since you are very different people, you are imperfect people, and usually a marriage in particular relates to families. So family dynamics outside of the two of you. It's just really important to be committed, to be very forgiving, to listen carefully to one another, what they're really saying. And if they're asking you to change, do it as best you can.
As best you can. Love that. Love that, Jeanne. And I know that you're in California, but Zoom and other virtual platforms make it make you readily available to speak to organizations everywhere.
Yes.
It doesn't matter where. So I just want to say to those that are watching this podcast that Jeanne is available to come and speak to your groups, your organizations, and she has different messages that she can bring to your organizations. But Jeanne, I'm going to just have you to share once again what type of organizations you're looking to speak to, and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, I think it's primarily women's groups.
Yes.
That can be women's clubs, women's business groups, women-owned corporations, but it's also churches.
Yes.
And moms groups. Right now, I'm attempting in the social media realm to join some moms groups, because how they relate to their children, how their spouses relate to their children, that's all part of marriage if there are children involved. So yeah, and I'm getting ahead of things, but I just want to make absolutely sure that your listeners know that a portion of my book sales and a portion of anything I'm paid for speaking goes to an organization called Bridge of Hope, and they support homeless moms and their children, which is so different from my life. I just wanted to give back.
Love that, Jeanne. We welcome those that would want to help support, have an outreach, a community outreach, and I applaud you for that, for giving back to the community. And what better way than to reach out and help women who are homeless, who have gone through a terrible time. So how can our listeners contact you?
Okay, I'm going to try and make this really simple, because I've tried. As an older person, I've gotten lots of advice on how to get out on social media and all of that. But if you spell my name correctly, and this is in script, but if you spell my name correctly, you will find me. Google me. Jeanne. The last name starts with a G. Gormick. And I'm sure Phyllis is going to put all my contact information, but you guys, and I have to start posting more videos, but I'm everywhere, including TikTok. I'm the closet millennial, because I absolutely love millennials, and I'm not your typical boomer who doesn't understand millennials. Trust me.
That is great. I love that, Jeanne. And thank you so much for coming today and sharing your life experiences and the love of your life of 50 years and the book that he inspired you to write that will change the lives of those who read the book. Again, it's an easy read book. It's one that you just want to continue to turn the pages, and it's a #1 Amazon bestseller. So Jeanne's notes will be there in the show notes area here, so that you will know how to connect with her. So be sure to reach out to her, reach out and purchase her books, reach out for her to come and speak. If you're in the California area, Jeanne, what part of California?
Oh, I'm in Southern California.
Okay.
South of Los Angeles and north of San Diego. So I could go speak in LA, Orange County, San Diego, San Bernardino, if I'm leaving anybody out, Riverside.
Very good. Very good. I have friends in Chino Hills as well. And So again, reach out to Jeannie. But if you're not in California, you can have her come and speak to your group virtually, and that would be outstanding as well. As we begin to move into fall and get on into the last quarter of this year, many of you, I'm sure, are thinking about your dreams, your goals, your desires that you had set in place that you wanted to do before the end of the year. If one of those dreams, desires, or even goals was to tell your story, to write a book, then this is the platform that will help you do just that. You are welcome to reach out to me at phyllisjenkins.com, and let's discuss having you come share your story on this particular platform, which is our Power Lift Stories podcast, or you are welcome to come and join our Authors Academy, where just like Jeannie has a book on Amazon, you too can have a book on Amazon. Or if you just want to share your story in an anthology, we have the Telling Our Stories Anthology Volume 2 that will be released this fall. So we will open up for Volume 3 that will begin after that. So you have ways to jump in and tell your story. Everyone has overcome something, regardless of age or life stage, which means everyone has a story. I'm on a mission to help women tell their stories by turning life challenges into life-changing messages, a message of hope, a message of inspiration, a message of encouragement that will not only help others survive, but thrive. Go tell your story. Jeannie, thank you again for being here.
Oh, Phyllis, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute delight visiting Texas today.
Wonderful. And thank you for wearing your hat, which you always do, but it inspired me to put mine on today as well. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you are interested in being on the show, go to phyllisjenkins.com. You can also sign up for the Powerful Journey Masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com.